So I'm going to talk about the art of the academic poster. I'm just going to go through some of the advice we give to staff and students who are interested in producing academic or research posters. Posters fundamentally, obviously about communication, communicating your research interests, your academic interests. I always think the nub of academia is that you take a simple question usually, why does this? You make it complex. These are 12 things that contribute to this, and then you come out with a simple answer and you communicate that. Now you're all brilliant teachers and you're very good at that last stage, at communicating. A lot of people aren't, and especially I work with a lot of researchers, very sort of involved in their research, and they struggle with that last stage, that communicating sort of simply, especially to people that aren't as informed as them. The research poster is a really good practice for communicating to a slightly layer audience. Research posters also need to be focused. You talk about one aspect of your research, so one paper, half a chapter, your most recent scholarly interest, not what you've been looking at for 5 years, it needs to be focused. Structure, very kind of standard. Title, no more than 12 words, it needs to stand out. People will stand 3 meters away, and in 5 seconds they'll decide whether they're going to come and read it or not. So it needs to stand out the title. Basic structure, introduction, what's your research question or your academic interest, what's your approach, your method of inquiry, what are your results, and then your analysis, and then small at the bottom, 3 or 4 references and any acknowledgements. Sounds standard, but you'll be surprised quite often somebody's a message if you can see one and there's no analysis, it's just not there. Design. I'd say 2 things are really important on this. One, that it's legible. Again, people aren't going to come and put their nose right up to it so they can read it because the type's so small. It needs to be legible. But the other thing, it needs to be visually attractive. I don't think there's many things we do in our day-to-day jobs where the aesthetics are important. It's something that's quite new for you to consider. So you need to make it colourful, you need to find pictures, which can be quite difficult depending on your research or academic area, diagrams. It also needs to be sort of nice to look at, visually attractive, so it needs to be balanced, the pictures on both sides, not just cluttered on one, and some space as well. I like that quote, I can't remember where it came from, that you use spaces on a poster like you use pauses in a sentence. It's quite important to have gaps around as well. In terms of the orientation, most event organisers will specify portrait. That's just because they want to save space. I actually prefer landscape, so I think if you can get away with landscape, that's a good one. I prefer those. Clear headings and a logical flow of information. A couple of pitfalls, and I'm going to stereotype here, but I do find it's true. Students in arts, humanities and social sciences will write too much. They'll have a wall-mounted essay they'll put up. So you need to try and pull them away from that, get them to include some pictures, to use some bullet points. STEM students and staff will tend to have brilliant diagrams, fantastic images, but there'll be no narrative in it at all. And the minute I get equations, then I'd walk away, I can't go with those. So it's a sort of stereotype, but a couple of things to if your students are in those areas, to sort of be cautious about. Audience, 3 main audiences for posters. So a specialist audience. I'm a medieval historian, I go to the International Medieval Conference. Everyone knows all my technical terms, all my methodology. I can be as specific as I want. Wider field, so we're doing an event in the history department. Most people there are medievalists, there's early modern historians, there's modernists, French historians, Russian historians, African historians, but they're historians, so there's a mid-level. In general, I'm doing public engagement, or there's a faculty event based in not HE historians. Usually posters would be on that one, but I think just be aware that you can go all the way and tailor it depending on what the specific event is. A few sort of practicalities. It's very easy to do posters here. The print shop know what they're doing. It's quite cheap, £9 a go, and they can usually do it next day for you. You tend to do them on PowerPoint, and they're quite happy to receive that. I spoke to the head of print services a few weeks ago, and he said 2 things that people always do that cause them a problem. The images aren't high enough resolution, and people put stuff too close to the edge, which they call bleeding, and then it doesn't sort of work properly. So there are 2 things just to look out for. And this is what we tend to come up with. So this is one that did a session with people from education recently before their research conference. So this is one of their PhD students, a lady called Lauren, and this is sort of quite a a nice sort of standard one. So things we talk about, it's got a clear sort of structure, nice headings, a balance of pictures, space. One thing to point out, Lauren, I think she's about 15 months into her PhD, so she's got her introduction, her research question, her methods, and she's just started putting some data on there. So she hasn't gone to the next stages of analysis, but that's just because of the stage she's at, but she's made it very clear here, that's why. So that's absolutely fine. But as she sort of progresses over the next year, this stuff will start getting condensed and she'll start bringing in analysis there. But that's sort of a good one. And also, there's about number 6 outside that would be worth having a look at. Just grab one coffee if you haven't seen them already. So posters are great because they can make beige walls look nicer. This was taken at the research conference, and you can see them all around the room. Very nice and sort of people sort of circulated during lunch and read them, so that was all really good. This is another one of our PhD students. This is Rachel, again from education, sort of standing proudly by her poster. And just to sort of point out that it's a really good kind of PR. You can promote yourself as an academic, your research interests. Quite often, eventually, you'll kind of manual post that people want to talk to you. So it's a really good kind of opportunity to sell yourself. And quite often, these will go back to your department and get stuck on the wall there as well. So sort of, once you've done that, once you can keep them. Done. So contact details for me. This is a long session I've done sort of for education, so there's a big sort of hour-long session. So if you want more detail, that goes into some specifics. I can tell you about dots per inch on images and colour theory. I did some things on colour theory about which colours sort of work well together and things like that. So there's a fuller session if you're interested in looking at that. And finally, I just wanted to plug 2 things. There's some really good poster exhibitions that happen in this university. One of them's already been mentioned, which is the one that Chris and Sarah do for history students in their first year one. That's really, really good, and I'd encourage you to go and see that. And BMRC and Mary, so that's Biosciences and Material Engineering, do one as well, so you can get a blend of arts and science. And they're both going to happen in December, so it's a bit unfortunate for now, but I'm going to look out for next year because I'd like to try and get along, and they're really interesting.